There's a huge issue going on in today's dating market. Not many people are talking about it. When you look at people talking about dating and relationships, they tend to focus on a couple of other areas, right? They tend to talk about trauma. They tend to talk about attachment styles, right? And while those things are important and they do play an important factor, they're not the ultimate biggest issue facing many of us who are trying to find partnership. From my perspective, the biggest issue facing single men and women nowadays, at least from the clients that I talk to and hearing about their problems, the biggest issue is capacity. Now, capacity is going to determine whether or not a person is able to hold an intimate connection with you, right? It doesn't matter what trauma they face in their past. It doesn't matter what their attachment style is. Regardless of trauma, regardless of attachment style, somebody's capacity is going to be the primary way to tell whether or not somebody can actually hold a connection. I was talking to a client recently, a young lady who was dating this guy for 7 months, right? 7 months she was dating him. And she kept things kind of surface level, kind of cool, right? She didn't really cause any kind of issues, didn't really cause any kind of friction. In 7 months, the connection was very comfortable. They didn't really have any problems, no real complaints. Until she went over the gentleman's house and she spotted different garments that supposedly belonged to another woman. And when she approached the guy that she was dating about this, they had a bit of a tiff, a little bit of an argument, right? Not a blown up in your face argument, a bunch of shouting and breaking things, just more friction than they've experienced in that connection thus far. He apologized and she went back home. And then the following day, he told her that he doesn't think that he's ready for a committed relationship. This was a capacity conversation. Once things became real, capacity reveals itself. And that's what a lot of people are experiencing nowadays. Once things become real, once things aren't still in this fantasy territory of, I like the idea of you, you like the idea of me. Once we ground the connection to reality, the capacity of the other individual is revealed. And oftentimes, many people nowadays are running when they experience that realness. And they're running because, from my perspective, a lot of people are having more negative dating experiences than they have historically. Why? Because we're hyper-connected. We have the technology now. We can connect with people all over the globe. We can connect with people, like a large quantity of people via dating apps. And these negative dating experiences, these negative connections are stacking on top of one another and causing people to be a bit overwhelmed relationally. There's a cost to having all of these negative romantic experiences, and that cost is a decrease in capacity. Now, there's 3 levels of capacity, because in this video, I want you to understand how you can judge somebody's capacity, ways to test capacity, and also how you can help things work with someone who has enough capacity to actually meet you, right? So there's 3 levels of capacity. High capacity individuals are people who can stay connected in the romantic connection, whether or not there is a high level of intimacy and whether or not there's a high level of friction, right? If there's a problem, they can stay connected and deal with the problem and repair. If intimacy is progressing, even if that is a bit scary, they can stay connected to you. High capacity individuals are the ideal. However, most of them tend to be partnered. Most of them tend to be in relationships. Then there's low capacity individuals. Low capacity individuals are going to run, and they're going to stay going more than likely. Once intimacy has been cultivated, or once you get closer to them, or once there is a bit of friction in the connection, they tend to either run, or if they do come back, they're never the same. Because here's the thing, there's 2 ways to test capacity. You either test it through intimacy or friction, right? You either get closer to the person, or you introduce a bit of friction or conflict into the dynamic. That story that I recently told, that woman introduced conflict into the dynamic, and that caused capacity of the man to be revealed. He was a low capacity individual, which is why he immediately ended the connection. Her biggest mistake there was to not introduce conflict soon enough into the connection. She tried to be too much of a cool girl, right? She tried to play things cool, and in doing so, she let 7 months fly by when she could have found out his capacity a month 2, right? So that was a low capacity individual, someone who either runs and stays going or returns and then they're never the same in the connection. But then there's a middle ground, right? There's a middle path. There's the moderate person. There's the person with moderate capacity. A person with moderate capacity is going to be workable. Okay, they're going to be workable. This is the avoidant who you can actually be with. This is the anxious person who you can actually be with. This is the fearful avoidant who you can actually be with. Moderate capacity is going to be someone who absolutely will be triggered by friction or closeness, right? They're going to be triggered by a bit of conflict. They're going to be triggered by a bit of intimacy. And when they are triggered, they normally will create a bit of distance, whether or not they are anxious or avoidant. They will create a bit of distance. By the way, that's like the mistake that people make about attachment styles. They think that anxious people never create distance. They never disappear. They absolutely do. They just do it for different reasons than the avoidant person does. Okay. So regardless of their attachment style, a moderate capacity individual likely will need to disappear for a bit or create space in order to regulate, right? They get overstimulated or they get dysregulated by intimacy or friction. So they create space to regulate themselves. But here's the thing. With the moderate capacity individual, they tend to return to the connection within 24 to 72 hours. So between 1 to 3 days, they typically will regulate and then return to the connection. Now, why do I say this is a workable situation? Because 1, they return. 2, they typically will engage in repair. And 3, over time, they tend to develop more capacity, assuming there's enough safety in the connection. So what are you to do with this? What are you to do with someone, this information I'm giving you about capacity? Well, this is going to help you filter people, right? Just assume you're not going to deal with a high capacity person. Assume that person is not in the dating market, right? There are a few, but they're extremely rare. They're so rare, in fact, there's no need to even consider it. So how are you going to leverage this information to help you out? Well, 1, you get to identify low capacity individuals. You do that by not avoiding conflict, not avoiding friction. That doesn't mean to artificially create it. That means that when it occurs, let it occur. Okay? Be yourself. Be a bit messy. Stop trying to be so polished in these connections. Stop trying to be so perfect. That perfection is not going to keep people around because that perfection is not sustainable. Being polished is not sustainable. Eventually, your rawness, your realness is going to show itself. And when it does, a low capacity individual is going to get going. They're going to vanish. Magician, right? They're going to be a full-blown magician, disappear and act on your ass. All right? So there's no need to extend the timeline of that. Let it happen when it's supposed to happen. Let conflict happen when it's supposed to happen. Let intimacy be cultivated when it's supposed to be cultivated. Because then you're going to reveal the capacity. Low capacity individuals are going to get going, right? If that 24 to 72 hour window passes and they don't return, or they do return and they're still kind of weird, in the connection, it's not going to improve. A moderate capacity person, it will improve over time. Okay? It will improve over time. Now, with a moderate capacity person, the way that you want to deal with that is 1, you want to make peace with a bit of ambiguity. That's a skill set a lot of people don't have nowadays. They don't want to ever experience this nebulous state. But in today's data market, this is something that you have to make peace with. Not forever, but at least in the beginning and in the short term. Okay? So with a moderate capacity person, give them that space. Give them that day, 1 to 3 days to regulate. Allow them to return to the connection organically. And then when they do, you're warm. You're not cold. You're not chastising them. You warmly receive them. As you warmly receive them, they start to feel a lot safer in the connection. And over time, you'll notice that they'll need to create space less because they'll become less dysregulated in your presence. They'll be able to tolerate the intimacy. They'll be able to tolerate the conflict because they know that you are going to remain the same through those moments. Okay? Now, I promise you, this is going to help you. This is going to help you, 1, filter through people faster who have low capacity, because a lot of you are entertaining people who have low capacity longer than you need to, right? And 2, this is going to help you help things work with people that have a real ability to be with you, right? Because some of you, when you see someone kind of create space or need to regulate, you take that as a red flag and you just completely leave the connection. But if you just were a little bit more patient, if you could just tolerate a little bit more ambiguity, that connection could have worked out. Obviously, there's more I can say on this topic, but I've given you enough for now. This is something that you can start to apply today. But for those of you, man or woman, who want to get help when it comes to your dating life, get help when it comes to your relationship, whether you want to heal a relationship that's kind of on the rocks, or you want to leverage a better, more effective dating strategy, I've opened up a few slots for my 1-hour coaching calls. You can find the link for that in the description. Just go ahead and click that link, answer the questionnaire, tell me a bit about your situation so I can make sure I can help you, and schedule your call. Okay? Till next time, y'all take care.